Hi, welcome to Bougie and Backpack Podcast. My name is Angel Trin, also known as Pennywise Traveler on Instagram, and I'm one of the co-founders of Bougie and Backpack. And I'm so happy to have you here today. Today we're having Marcie on our podcast, and she's one of our upcoming speakers for our upcoming Bougie and Backpack Virtual Summit. Hi, Marcie. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. So do you want to give a quick introduction about yourself?
You bet. So my name is Marcie Cheung, and I run Hawaii Travel with Kids and the Hawaii Travel Made Easy podcast, where I help families and other travelers plan their perfect Hawaii vacation. My mission is to minimize the stress and maximize the memories.
Nice. So how'd you first, what made you choose Hawaii as your destination for your travels?
Yeah, so I've actually been to Hawaii more than 40 times, which may seem a little crazy for people, but I have a long family history there, and my mom has lived there for the past 15 years or so. And so we always have an excuse to run away to Hawaii.
That makes sense. So, where does your mom live in Hawaii?
Yeah, she lives on the island of Kauai, which I think is one of the prettiest islands.
What made your mom move to Hawaii?
So it's sort of a long story, but my grandma used to live on Kauai. She split her time between Seattle and Kauai. And then when she passed away, my mom and her siblings kind of inherited her condo. And so then it pretty soon just became my mom's condo, and she would rent it out for people coming to visit. And then she decided about 15 years ago to move there full time because she's a wedding officiant. And that is one of the best places for people to go and have destination weddings or elope or things like that.
That makes a lot of sense. So is your mom also renting out her house for wedding pictures and everything too?
No, so she lives in a condo, so it's a little small to do that. But she knows all of the best spots to get married on the beach, or really pretty, waterfall locations or cool hikes. I mean, it's amazing the kind of weddings people come up with.
No, that makes sense. So did she start that back in Seattle where you guys lived in? Oh, so she's always been this for her career-wise. It wasn't just that she had an awakening and she just decided to move to Hawaii just to become an officiant after your grandma passed away.
Yeah, well, I think she had her awakening here in Seattle, where she was trying to figure out what her next move was going to be. And then she just fell into it and really liked it, and then realized that Hawaii would be, there's more of a draw for people to get married in Hawaii versus our living room in Seattle. So it ended up working out, and she's super happy there. And we have a great excuse to go visit grandma now when I bring my kids over.
That's so cool. Wait, so she used to marry people in your living room?
Yeah, she did.
When I
was in high school and college, so sometimes I'd have to be their witness, when it's just a couple that has nobody with them. So it was kind of a very unique way of having a parent having a kind of a unique job.
No, that's kind of cool though, because I'm always interested in all these different things that people do. So I'm not sure if you know this or not, but we had a recent podcast guest. Her name's Luba, and she actually booked her wedding through home exchange. So she had her
interesting.
Yeah. So her wedding venue was through home exchange, and all the wedding guests, they helped her out with the wedding. So she didn't ask them for a wedding gift. Their wedding gift to them was helping out with the wedding. So I'm always kind of interested of how people do different things, because it's a new way of thinking, how your mom, she does the wedding officiant in her house in the living room. So it's interesting what kind of side hustles and different ways that people do to save money. It's always kind of interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
So then that way, I guess having it in your living room was kind of I don't know if it was more fancier than having at the City Hall wedding, or maybe because City Hall wedding is one by one. So, because I have friends who got married at City Hall before, and sometimes it's a long wait. So maybe that was a faster wait for people getting married in your living room.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I just remember sometimes people will call up in the morning and they want to get married that day. And I know my mom gets that still in Hawaii, where people will literally fly in, or they'll be on their vacation going, let's get married. And then it just happens. She's able to run over there and marry them.
Hey, good for her. It kind of reminds me how people have the quick weddings in Las Vegas, but this time they're in Hawaii.
Exactly. I feel like it's a little bit classier. I don't know.
So that's so cool. That's how you first started with Hawaii, with your mom going there, and then your grandma and everything. So made you kind of Like, tell us about Hawaii. Like, what made you, like, what was the first place you visited in Hawaii and everything?
Yeah, so I first went to Hawaii when I was in fourth grade, and we went to Kauai because my grandma was living there, and so it was actually kind of cute because she let my parents and my brother stay in her condo, and then she and I stayed in her friend's condo in the same building. But it was really nice just to get a little bit of time with just my grandma for my first trip, which was really fun. And I remember her taking me to see the free hula shows, and I used to do like ballet and jazz and stuff when I was little, like dancing. And I was just like mesmerized by the hula. And so she bought me my first VHS tape that like was like how to hula. And so I did that for a long time. And then when back in Seattle, I actually took hula lessons for about 20 years to really
Oh.
like learn how to do it all. It was such a life-changing trip, I guess.
Wow. So do your kids do hula with you now too? Or you just kind of like stopped doing hula for a long time?
Yeah, so when I was pregnant with my oldest, I was still dancing. And then after he was born, I actually started a baby wearing hula class here in the Seattle area. So we did that for about a year or so. So I put him in a baby carrier and we would dance. And I had all these other new moms in the class too. And our babies would fall asleep while we were dancing. And it's really special and just getting to know other new moms and stuff. And but then as he got a little bit older, it just became a little bit more challenging. And so I'm kind of taking a break from it for a while, but it's always in my heart.
But that's kind of amazing that you made that community that way too.
Hmm. Yeah, it's really special.
So for Hawaii, every time you go, so do you make an effort where you kind of first visit your mom in Kauai and then you venture all to different parts of the different islands in Hawaii? Or like, what is a trip like? Because I'm just kind of curious, like, what is a trip to Hawaii with you like?
Totally. Well, it's amazing, but sometimes we go to Kauai and visit my mom. Sometimes we plan on going to another island and then invite her to come join us for part of the trip because she can just take an inter island flight. So one time on the Big Island, she actually flew in just for the day, and that is it's like about like an hour and a half, 2 hour flight from Kauai to the Big Island. So it was pretty impressive that she took like the first flight in the morning and then the last flight in the evening, and so she stayed with us all day, and then we all kind of flew home at the same time. But yeah, so sometimes we do that. I usually visit at least one island. I'm usually two. You know, there's very few trips that are just me going to one island. Usually we're end up going to sometimes even three islands, depending on how long the trip is.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So like, how do you plan out a Hawaii trip?
Well, it's a little different now that it's like my business because I end up making a lot of like partnership connections where I'm trying to, a lot of our vacations, we go to maybe 3 or 4 luau's, which is not typical. But because of my business, I want to make sure that I'm experiencing as many as I can so I can really recommend the right ones for different groups of people. So anytime I hear that there's like a new attraction or a new luau or a new restaurant or something, we always try to fit that into. But my kids are always laughing because they're like, gosh, how many luau's are we going to do this time? Or how many photo shoots? Or how many, like how many shave ice places are we hitting up today? And I'm like, all of them. We want to do everything. So it's a pretty whirlwind adventure sometimes.
That's pretty cool though. So you're like, how do you find out about these new restaurants and new ice places and everything? Like, do they reach out to you or do you find them on Yelp or like, how do you find out these different places?
Totally. A lot of times they reach out to me to let me know because they know that I specialize in Hawaii travel. But also, I'm in a bazillion Facebook groups and all like Hawaii specific Facebook groups. And so a lot of times locals or visitors will share about great experiences they had somewhere. So I always make a little list of that. And then I'm on Instagram. And so anytime I'm scrolling through and I go, ooh, that looks delicious, or what is that? I haven't heard of this one yet. I just kind of add it to my list.
Oh, nice. What are some of the mistakes that you see people doing when they plan a trip to Hawaii?
Totally. I think the number one mistake people are making right now is not realizing they need reservations for things. And I'm not just talking about like restaurants and stuff. I'm talking about like if you want to hike Diamond Head on Oahu, like you have to have a reservation before you can even go. And so a lot of people don't realize that. Or Pearl Harbor, if they want to see the USS Arizona Memorial, you have to book a reservation in advance. You can't just, well, technically you can show up and wait in a line and maybe get to do it, but you really are going to want that reservation. Or Sunrise at Haleakala, or there's so many other like attractions or beaches or hikes that you do need a reservation. And that's all in addition to any tours or luau's or whatever you want to book. I feel like back in the day, you could just go to Hawaii and then the day of go, I feel like going to a luau. Let's book one. You just can't do that anymore. You have to do it a couple weeks in advance usually.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. When I went to Hawaii, I was surprised too that you had to book things so far in advance. Like, how
Mhm.
far in advance do you think people should book things?
I think if it's a must do, just book it as soon as you're booking your trip. You
Hmm.
know, That's what I do if I know for sure if I'm going to Maui, I want to do sunrise at Haleakala. I'm setting my calendar alert for as soon as those tickets are released. And a lot of times those tickets go within 15 minutes. So you really have to be like, it could be 3 a.m. and you're you're sitting at your laptop refreshing your screen so that you can get that coveted reserve for those. And then for like luau's or restaurants, there's certain restaurants that you do need a couple months in advance. But like a lot of the restaurants, just a couple weeks is good.
So, like, do you just, and it's just pretty easy, just book it through their website, or do you recommend going through a third party? I've done reservations before for pairs, and it was actually easier to go through a third party for a museum where the museum itself, the Museum de Orange, or I don't know how to say French, or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Museum de
L'Orange
Leon.
or yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that one, they sold out on their website, so I went
Mhm.
through a third party to book to get tickets to go to their museum. So, like, that's
Totally, and
I'm
I yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree to do that in Europe. We do that all the time. I rarely book direct in Europe because it's just so much easier through the third parties.
Mhm.
And you have more options, I feel like. But for
Mhm.
Hawaii, for any of the reservations for like hikes or beaches and stuff, it's all through like the state parks department and things like that. So you're going to want to go through the official link. I don't even think third parties can do a lot of that. But for Pearl Harbor,
Mhm.
if you can't get a reservation for the USS Arizona Memorial, that's the one that I would say for sure go through a third party and you can book a tour that includes it. So it might be your transportation and the USS Arizona and maybe Battleship Missouri or something like that. And then you're paying for a tour guide for that, but it guarantees you a slot and it's like a preferable time
Mhm.
slot. So then I would recommend doing that.
Yeah, that makes sense. What are some budget-friendly ways to get to Hawaii?
Well, you're going to want to set a Google alert, I think a Google flight alert, just to check airfare.
Mhm.
I've been having really good luck lately doing Costco travel packages
Mhm.
where they will book, where you'll bundle your airfare, your hotel, and a rental car. And that has been
Mhm.
working out to be a lot cheaper than doing stuff separately just lately. But if you have airline miles or airline credit cards or anything like that, I would definitely look at that. Our family uses Alaska Airlines as the hub is in Seattle.
Mhm.
So we have like a bazillion direct flights to all the islands, but they have a companion fare. And so a lot of times it's cheaper for us to use a companion fare and then my husband and I can each use a companion fare so our kids can go just, I think it's take for taxes or something. This is a much
Mhm.
cheaper rate. So that's usually what we use our companion fare for is for Hawaii trips.
That makes sense. Yeah, I've done something similar with Southwest Companion Pass when I
Mhm.
went to
Yeah.
Hawaii last year too. It's similar, except I think like Alaska, it's only like a one-time use versus Southwest. If you have Companion Pass, you can get it unlimited for the amount of time frame you get it from.
Yes. So I
Like
think
it'd be like
Southwest is
1 or 2 years. Yeah.
yeah, it's a great way to go if you have the right flights for your city. It's a great way of doing it.
Yeah, and then Southwest flies to all the different islands too, so it's pretty convenient too.
Yeah, for sure.
So for hotel wise, what do you recommend for people to look into for going to Hawaii?
It really depends on what you're looking for. So I know some people go to Hawaii and they don't want to spend any time in their room. They want to be out and about doing stuff. And so then I would say for sure just get somewhere that's really affordable and you maybe you don't need a resort because you don't aren't going to use any of the amenities or anything. So I would try to find maybe a condo that has free parking so you can come and go as you like. But for like a lot of families, they're going to want really good swimming pools. So that's going to be very important for their children and maybe
Yeah.
even water slides or cabanas or things like that. If you're going to have some resort days, those are some features to look for. And then I would say location. So what I usually suggest people do is figure out what they want their trip to look like first and then put all of their like the locations they want to visit into a map so they can kind of see where they're going to be spending the most time. So, like on Oahu, I know lots of people end up staying in Waikiki, but then when they map out all the places they're going, maybe half of their days are going to be up on the North Shore or somewhere else. And so it would make a lot more sense if they were staying closer instead of dealing with traffic every day. So certain things like that, like and on Maui, same thing. Like maybe they think they want to be on in the west side, but then realize most of the stuff they want to do is more central. And so it makes more sense to kind of figure out all of the things you want to do first before saying you want to stay somewhere that's going to end up
Mhm.
being a lot of traffic because Hawaii has a lot more traffic than people I think assume because they think the island is small, it's going to be easy to get around, but there's so much traffic.
Yeah, I agree with that too. How is Maui after the fires and stuff? Like, would you say it's still like okay to visit, or is there certain places that are still not open yet?
Totally. Maui is ready for tourists and they have been for a while. I know there was a lot of hesitation. I personally was really
Mhm.
hesitant to go back to Maui because I wanted to be really respectful.
Mhm.
And I know that there was some conflicting opinions about things, but at this point, all the small businesses are begging for people to come and support them. The only thing that's really off limit is where Front Street in Lahaina was. That is still it's that's gonna be a while before that part is open. But places like the old Lahaina Luau that are technically on Front Street, they've been back in business for about a year now, and
Mhm.
I that's where I went on my first trip back to support them because they are supporting the recovery of Lahaina. And there are definitely there's like the Maui Chocolate Company that's like nearby. They are still doing tours and they're trying to revitalize kind of Lahaina tourism. But there's just certain stores, restaurants, and things that aren't going to be open for quite a while.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Like it used to be that everyone would be staying in Lahaina or Ka'anapali area. And now
Mhm.
it's really trendy to be in the Kihei area. It's kind of like that's the new hub of like all the action. And so if people are planning trips, I would definitely say like look at Kihei or Wailea. Those are like the new it spots on Maui.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because I think for points and miles people, they really look into towards the Hyatt and stuff. So like they always go where
Mhm.
the Hyatt is when they plan out their trips and
Yeah.
everything.
The Hyatt is still open and functioning. And it's still a great spot. I think that that's one of the best Hyatts in Hawaii, actually.
Which one? The because I think there's two in Maui. I think there's a Hyatt Regency Maui, and I know there's another one too. I
Yes,
think.
so the Hyatt Regency Maui, that's the one that I think is really good for families and couples. It's in a great location and they have so many amenities that it's one of those places that you really could have several resorts days and be totally fine.
Awesome. What are some places that are kind of like undercover for Hawaii, like visiting wise? Because I think everybody always goes to like, they always go to Waikiki, they always go to
Mhm.
Maui, and then sometimes people go to Kauai, but not as much as compared to the other two.
Yeah, for sure. I think the Big Island is starting to become like it has always been kind of a hidden gem. And I think now more and more people are starting to discover how amazing it is. And it's really easy to go to the Big Island and find places that there are very few tourists. There's just a lot more driving involved. And I think that that's
Mhm.
what scares some people away. And it's like, less nightlife. Things like that. But they have some cool beaches. A lot of it is really amazing, volcanic experiences. They also have some gorgeous waterfalls and really cool hikes and lots of like outdoor adventure stuff. So it's pretty easy to find in places that aren't crowded and you feel like you're discovering them for like the first time ever.
Yeah, I don't think Hyatt has a Big Island. Yeah, yeah, because I feel like
No.
all the Pointy Miles people they go to either Kauai or Maui
Yeah.
or Waikiki because that's where all the Hyatts are.
Totally, totally. There's at least one Marriott on the Big Island. I know for
Mhm.
people doing those points. Yeah, yeah, but Hyatt also they have sister properties and stuff too that where you can still use the points even if it's not branded Hyatt. But I can't remember on the Big Island specifically what some of those hotels might be.
Yeah. That makes sense. If it's a small, like, joint partnership, I know that sometimes they have the timeshare ones, the Hyatt, I forgot the name of the timeshare one. It's like the timeshare property but I think that one is in Maui, I think, or Kauai, that one, the one that's a timeshare one.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? So I think I know what you're talking about there because there is one on Kauai in the Lihue area.
Mhm.
And it used to be a Marriott, and then they sold to Royal Sonesta, but I think the timeshare part is still Marriott. So it's a
Mhm.
very confusing, kind of confusing setup. Or at least when I went, it was right like the week after the transitions happened. And so it was kind of hard to figure out like what area was timeshare and what area was this new resort. But that's a great resort. They have an amazing swimming pool.
Yeah, I guess for the non-height, people who don't wanna use points to go to Hawaii, what do you recommend them to stay at?
I still always suggest hotels. I know a lot of people are really big on vacation rentals, but there's been kind of an issue in Hawaii with between short-term and long-term vacation rentals, and some of them aren't legal anymore, but people still list them. And so it's just you just kind of run the risk of maybe not reading the fine print and realizing, shoot, no, I did need to stay here for 30 days to make it legal, or just kind of all kinds of stuff. And there's a lot of kind of shadiness. The reason why there's so much, I guess, like drama over it is that there's a huge housing shortage in Hawaii. So
Mhm.
vacation rentals are kind of, I don't know, they give a lot of people the ick, I guess. And so, so that's why I personally always suggest just doing a hotel, because that's what they're there for. It's meant for tourists. You'll still get whatever kind of local experience you're looking for, but you don't need to be part of that problem.
What about car rentals?
Yeah, so unless you're staying in Waikiki, I say you definitely need a car in Hawaii, like everywhere else. Waikiki is just a little bit different because there are lots of like Ubers and Lyfts, and you can take the trolley around, you can take the bus, you can take, there's lots of like tour pickups in Waikiki. So it is really easy to get around. Like I go to Waikiki and a lot of times they don't rent a car because it's just so easy to get around. But on all the rest of the islands, or if you're staying outside of Waikiki, I think for sure you need a rental car. I always book mine through Discount Hawaii Car Rental, because when I price check, they usually have the best deal, unless I'm doing it through Costco Travel, and where I'm doing my hotel and airfare and a car rental, because then the car rental is usually much cheaper that way.
Interesting. I never heard of that website, discount Hawaii car rental for that.
Yes,
Yeah.
so they're kind of awesome because it's all of the regular car rental places,
Mhm.
like Avis and Thrifty and Budget and whatever, but they kind of compare them all and they give you the cheapest price that any of them can do. So they just do a lot of price checking, and it always ends up being cheaper to book through them than booking direct. So that's why I use them.
Yeah, so it's kind of like Auto Slash, but just for Hawaii then.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's another because I know that a lot of people use Auto Slash also, so it's good to have the Hawaii car rental one just to compare that also for that too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, in the past I've done corporate codes when I went to Hawaii, but that's another good one to look into, the Hawaii car rental one, just for people that
Mhm.
don't have corporate codes.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like Hawaii, I mean, I'm sure you get this too because you blog about Hawaii. It's like the most, whenever I post Hawaii stuff, it does really well because everybody wants to go to
Absolutely.
Hawaii because you don't need a passport, and then it's like cheap with Southwest, so it's like it's a very easy place that a lot of people visit.
Absolutely. And especially people who live on the West Coast. It's like the go-to for spring break or summer, winter break, because it is that tropical, almost like international feeling place, but you don't need the passport. They take US cash, everyone speaks English. Like it's pretty, accessible for people.
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of people, they go to Hawaii for their honeymoon and they have such a great time. Like, oh my gosh, I want to go back. And then they have kids and they go, oh gosh, I can't imagine flying with my kids, or it's just not going to be a vacation if we're bringing the kids with us. And it's just not true. Like you can definitely have those experiences, but if you do some planning ahead of time, you can really have it be a really enjoyable vacation. If you like, I always recommend people find hotels that have a kids club or kids activities, just so you can get a little bit of downtime. Or there's lots of reputable babysitting, nanny kind of agencies over there that can help you if you need a date night or if you want to do an adventure that's not kid friendly. So there are some options to do that. But I think Hawaii is one of the best places to bring kids. Like my kids have
Mhm.
traveled the world since they were babies, and they always ask to go back to Hawaii just because it's so chill. And they know we can do a mix of like a little bit of adventure, but then also hanging out at the pool or a beach. And there are museums in Hawaii, but they know they're not going to get dragged to a bunch of art museums or something. Like they know that they're going to be able to like do a bunch of really fun, hands-on, outdoorsy kinds of things.
Mhm.
So I think that helps a lot for people traveling with kids.
So when they go to the kids club or the kids center, is it like kind of like a flat fee to babysit the kids for a certain amount of time, or like how is that priced against, just for someone planning out a trip to Hawaii for like looking towards the babysitting or the kids club just to have some break for the kids?
Totally. It really depends on the resort. Things kind of changed during the pandemic. A lot of places didn't reopen their kids club, or the kids club rules and fees are different now. And so I always suggest for people to contact the hotel directly, because a lot of times it's not even on their website, some of the fees and things. So I would always contact and ask so you can get the actual number. Some resorts, they will say that their kids clubs are free, but maybe it's also part of the resort fee that you're paying at some point. And so I just always think it's best if people ask direct.
That makes sense. If you're paying this resort fee only and you're having kids and they cover the kids club, that's something good to look into because I think people
Mhm.
they don't think like that and they just think like I have to pay extra for something else.
Exactly.
What are some of the babysitting agencies that you have seen that are pretty common?
Yeah, so it kind of varies by island. I have some listings of the agencies. I can't remember them off the top of my head because we usually go with my mom who can watch the kids. So
Oh,
so I don't always use them. I've used individual babysitters sometimes when I've traveled, but I'd have to look up the actual agency names. But they're out there. If you go to my blog, I have blog posts about the different babysitting agencies on the islands.
I think a lot of people they don't talk about the babysitting part because they just think that the kids have to go with them everywhere. I mean, granted, I don't have kids, but I think that's what a lot of people think for the kids wise.
Yeah, I know it's a hesitation because they think that they can't do boat trips or zip lining or, shark cage diving or manta ray snorkeling, or they think that they can't do all these adventures, but you can, you just need to figure out somewhere for your kids to go for a while. So it's definitely something to factor into your budget if you're thinking about doing that. But there are tons of
Yeah.
adventures that you can bring your kids. Like I know for like on the Big Island, manta ray snorkeling is a really big deal. It's at nighttime. But really, I want to say it's like for kids 8 and up. But
Mhm.
some tours you can bring your little kids that they just stay on the boat. So it's just like, so
Mm.
it's not, they can't go into the water and do the snorkeling, but you can still bring them. So like you could have a parent on there and you kind of switch off or something. Or like I've gone on snorkeling trips with my husband and we just kind of trade off who's on the boat with the kids and who's out there exploring. So there's lots of ways to kind of like still get some of those like big ticket adventures if you're looking for that, or on your trip you can kind of divide and conquer a little bit. Like one takes the little kid and they do something easy, and somebody takes an older kid and they can do an adventure. I go ziplining with my oldest all the time, but my youngest has no interest. So he and my husband usually go off and they'll like hang at the pool or go get shave ice somewhere. So there's lots of options.
I mean, good for him. You can hang out with your husband, so it's not that bad. For for food wise, do you think like have you done grocery shopping in Hawaii before, or would you do most of the people just like is it how is that with like hotels and stuff? Because I know that not every single hotel has like a kitchen and stuff, and sometimes people do want to save money on food by going to the grocery store.
Absolutely. So if you're in Waikiki, there are ABC stores everywhere, and they
Mhm.
have like a little kind of like deli grocery store kind of section for like grab and go foods. And so when we're staying in Waikiki, that's usually what we do for breakfast. So we go and get like spam musubi or, pog juice or things like that, yogurts. They have like, passion fruit yogurts, delicious things like, well, things that we can't always get at home. We usually stock up, and then most hotels have a mini fridge. So we'll put stuff in the mini fridge. Like we'll like arrive in Hawaii usually in the afternoon, check into the hotel, drop the bags, go get some little groceries. Because with the time difference, I know like my kids are up at like 4 in the morning in Hawaii and they're hungry and there's nowhere open. And so we always want to make sure that we have something to like keep them from getting hangry. And then I usually get like even like cans of they'll have like Kona coffee and stuff. So I'll get like all that stuff so we can kind of like have a pre-breakfast before the sun comes up, and then we can go and do whatever we're going to do later in the day. And then if we're in a condo, then we do like regular grocery shopping where we get food to like, that we can cook. And there's like Costco is a good option, but it's really only a good option if you're going to be there for like a week or you have a big group of people. Otherwise, I know people always buy too much at Costco and then they're leaving and they're not going to take it with them. And so either things go to waste or they're frantically trying to give stuff away, and that's not really saving money. So I always like tell people like you're probably going to be eating out a little bit. So keep that in mind. Like definitely get like breakfast foods and maybe snacks and drinks and stuff. But then I think it's easier to kind of do like that daily grocery shopping of like, oh, you know what? Let's pick up poke bowls from Foodland or something for lunch or dinner or something. And so you're not having like a stockpile of
Mhm.
food that you're probably not going to get through.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Your Hawaii trip will be whatever you're looking for. Like a lot of people
Yeah.
do want to just stay at a hotel and sit by the pool and sip their mai tai or be at a beach. But there's other people that want to be doing nonstop adventures where they're trying to figure out if they can like go all across Oahu in one day and then fly to Maui the next day and like try to do it all. They just want to maximize everything. And so I'm always telling those people to kind of like slow your roll and like, like maybe pick 2 islands and make sure you're building in some downtime where maybe you just want to sit at a beach for a little bit. Or if you're going with kids, maybe they're tired, or you're going with your husband and he's cranky. Like you're just like, just stop and just kind of let everyone regroup and relax a little bit. And then, maybe pick just a handful of like your really big adventures.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I'm guilty of that crime too, where I overplan. I have all these ambitious ideas. I don't always do all
Yeah.
these ambitious ideas.
Well, I think sometimes those people end up leaving their trip feeling like a failure because they didn't get to do all the things they wanted to do, right? And so it's like a different vibe than like just pick the 3 things in your 1-week vacation that are like your must-dos. And then when you do that, you're like, wow, I can't believe I got to do that. And all these things are bonus that I got to do. Whereas like other times you're looking at your itinerary going, gosh, I meant to hit up this restaurant and I wanted to try this and I wanted to do this hike and blah, blah, blah. I didn't get to do all the things on my list. Yes, like I can tell you feel me, you understand. So it's always like you don't want to leave your vacation feeling let down.
No, for sure. It's true. I guess one question I would ask, like, because like where would you find cheap gas in Hawaii? Or that's not really,
I mean, I
right?
don't
'Cause,
really
like,
think that's a thing, but I would say Costco for sure is the
yeah.
cheapest gas. And there's usually a Costco near the airport. So that's usually like a really good last stop right before you return your rental car.
Okay, that's a good one to think about too. Because like I don't think last time I did that for the Costco for going for the gas.
Then you probably paid a lot more than you should have.
No, I know. Well, I was going with a guy, and he he paid for it.
That's even better, you know?
Still, like, there's always like little parts you can save money and stuff. How would you choose your island in Hawaii? Like, what are the differences for the different islands?
Totally. I think a lot of people assume it's all the same or they just start looking at hotels and stuff, but each island is really it's just so different with what's available. And so I always ask like I have blog posts about this, I have quizzes about this, I have all kinds of stuff because it's like such a big question people have is trying to determine or comparing the different islands. So I always say like kind of like get your overview and kind of think about like when you think of Hawaii, what are you picturing? Is it like, those gorgeous, like, jagged mountains going into the ocean? Is it, these serene beaches with calm water? Is it like volcano stuff? Like, what are you picturing as being Hawaii for you? And then figure out the island that has the things you're looking for. Like, not all islands have an active volcano. Not all islands have like, golden sandy beaches. Like, there's just a lot of things to think about, like depending on what you're looking for. If you want to do like, if you're looking for nightlife or you're looking for good shopping or you want small town feel or, you're trying to do activities and you want to do like a bunch of touristy stuff or you want to hit the highlights. Like there's just so many different ways you could take your trip.
Yeah, I feel like Hawaii, it's a place that you just go like again and again. It's not a place that you
Mhm.
just hit once just because there's so much. I know. I always feel like whenever I go to Hawaii too, I always feel so like it's like I don't even need a passport. It's like a
I
refresh.
know.
And it's like I'm from California too, and most people are like, "You're from California, you should be used to that." And I'm like, "No, I just feel."
No, I know. Hawaii is always a really fun time. And, I feel like people should consider it when they're planning their next trip.
Yeah, for sure. So, Marcy, where can we find you?
Yeah, so I have my blog, which is hawaiitravelwithkids.com. And you can also find me on Instagram at Hawaii Travel with Kids. And I'm also on Pinterest. I have tons of Pinterest stuff at Hawaii Travel with Kids. And I have my podcast, which is called Hawaii Travel Made Easy.
Awesome. So if you found this podcast very helpful, make sure you leave us a podcast rating review because it does help us find more podcast guests like Marcy, because a lot of the sponsors and podcast guests, they find us through the podcast ratings and reviews. And if you're catching this after the summit has been over, make sure you catch the replay in the show notes below. All right, thank you so much for being here, Marcy.
Thanks for having me.